In professional sports, a franchise player is an athlete who is not simply the best player on their team, but one that the team can build their franchise around for the foreseeable future.
Welcome into a new episode of Franchise Players. Here on Across the Triad, multiple formats, multiple stations. You can hear us every Friday, WWBG 1470 AM as part of the TGIF Tobacco Road Sports Radio lineup. At 6 o'clock in Forsyth County, you can hear it on WTOB 980 AM, 96.7 FM. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson. Loaded show today. A little bit later on from WRAL, Dennis Cox and Chris Lee come through for the Sports Buffet. We talk everything from Royal Rumble to Carolina Duke to Matt Rule somehow got in there. So we got all that going on. And then Joe Deleone from Bleav is actually in Mobile for the senior week this week for the Senior Bowl. So he was able to stop by, give us an idea of some guys we can look at maybe day 2, day 3 for the Panthers to fill in some depth. So got a lot of stuff going on today. Of course, had to kick off the show with my dude. He is the official sixth man of UNC basketball. He's a public announcer for the Greensboro Swarm, Winston-Salem State. He's the host of I Don't Know, Maybe You Didn't Either on Black Effect Podcast. And I probably missed 2 or 3 other things you got going on right now, but we'll get to that towards the end. The homie B Daht stopping by. What's up, brother? How you doing?
What's happening, Des? Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, my boy, on the franchise player, because I do consider myself a franchise player.
Indeed. I had to go get the franchise players whenever I'm doing these. So I had to go bring you in. And of course, this is the week to do it. UNC Duke rivalry. I know Wednesday night things didn't go as expected at the Dean Dome. Playing Pitt. What is it with Pitt, man? We can't seem to take care of Pitt the past couple of years. What is it? I don't understand what it is.
They bully us.
They bully us.
It's as simple as that, man. They come into Smith Center, they punch us in the mouth, and we tuck our tails and we run every year, and it's pretty embarrassing. Last year was my first season as arena host. We only had 2 losses out of 16 home games. One was to Pitt, one was to Duke. And I really wanted to avenge both of those losses this year. That's something that I take very seriously, the win-loss streak in the Smith Center, because the fans and the students, we all play a huge part in that, and we take those wins, we cheer with those wins, but we definitely take those losses home with us. And Wednesday night, it was a very somber mood, very quiet in the Smith Center at the conclusion of a 65-64 loss. I think the only sound that I remember hearing, is Jason Capel cursing at the fans as he was leaving.
I heard all about that. Yeah. I didn't realize my man felt so slighted, but I kind of get it. You show up on the opposing team's bus. I mean, I don't know how much love they're going to give you other than that opening, introduction or whatever after that. And then I heard he had a little rant or something in the hallway or something about the fans.
In Jason Capel's defense, man, and not that he needs my defense. I am not a defense attorney. That's my good friend Jason. He does that. But if I had to defend him, I would say, and this is from his mouth, and I hadn't thought about it until Jason Capel said it, but, when King Rice comes into town with Monmouth, he isn't treated that way. And when Wes Miller comes to town, he isn't treated that way. There are certain Tar Heels that do feel slighted and don't feel like they're part of the Carolina family. It was great for me to see Will Graves actually in the Smith Center on Wednesday. And he was one of those people that for a while felt like the Carolina family sort of held him like a black sheep to the family. But he said that the response that he got of love and the reception that he got in the Smith Center on Wednesday made him feel so welcome that he will most definitely be back moving forward. And I think that says a lot, man. When you think of certain guys that didn't end their career like they would have wanted to, these guys grow up wanting to be Tar Heels. Jason Capel, when he was 19, he had a back surgery that changed the trajectory of his entire career. So for him to still come and still be on one of the worst teams ever, but also he went to a Final Four. He won an ACC, and I think that he just wants those things to be magnified more than the 8-20 season.
Really that entire team, that 8-20 team, I think is looked at by the Carolina fan base as like a team they'd rather forget.
100%.
And I think that's why I don't even think it's really directed to him. I think it's directed to that team. Him, Chris Lang, those guys. It should have been Joseph Forte's team. He left way too early. Bottom fell out. And you're right. They had a surprise run to the Final Four in 2000 as an 8 seed. Sounds familiar. So, yeah, I get it from both sides. But, Yeah, the Carolina fan base probably should take a step back, pause a little bit, and kind of realize, this guy's part of the family too. Even though his brother's coaching Pitt, who apparently has our number right now.
Right.
Now, I'm watching you as the sixth man of UNC basketball. I have noticed, and you just touched on this, in the Dean Dome, it feels like a tougher place to play since you became official last year. If I'm not mistaken, they've only lost 4 home games since you took over. Is that right?
No, that's incorrect. We've only lost 3 home games in the last 2 years.
Okay, and 2 of those was to Pitt, and then 1 was
to 2 was to Pitt, and 1 was to Duke last year. Absolutely.
And on Wednesday it was by 1 point.
Right.
What do you think you've done to cause the biggest shift in the crowds during the home games in Chapel Hill?
Well, I'm just great, at what I do. No, man. You know what's funny? I was talking to my father yesterday, and I was just telling him, you really never know what God is preparing you for. When I was in school, high school, middle school, I made every team. I was never cut from a football team or a basketball team, but I never got a lot of playing time. I was never a star athlete, but I got a great vantage point from the bench, like many of us did, and so I know what good football and good basketball looks like. I know how an arena and how fans can affect the game positively and negatively. So with my innate skill set of being able to galvanize people and entertain people in mass numbers, and my love for athletics and my understanding of how to implement certain energy, I really am just very good at what I do. And that is a testament to the 3 losses we've had in 2 years in the Smith Center. The fans have bought in, and that's what I'm the most appreciative of. For years, I was told that this is a wine and cheese crowd. And it just feels good to go in there and seeing fans from 8 to 80 all enjoying being in the Smith Center, 21,000 strong. And that's what I continue to reiterate during the game. It's like there aren't too many other gyms in the country where it's 21,500 fans in there. And when we're all standing and raucous and loud and all on the same page, we could be the most intimidating gym in college basketball. And, the fans have started to buy into that. They're starting to see how their energy can affect games and motivate the guys. And, we aren't where we want to be, but we damn sure aren't where we were. And I'm proud of that.
You can feel it. It's palatable through the screen. I noticed it last night watching it. There was a couple of runs that Carolina had, and the crowd kind of got into it, especially that lower rim. And you can hear it now through the TV. And you're right. It used to be the wine and cheese crowd. The older fan base hated it whenever it got really loud in there.
Right.
And that's been flipped on its end over the past year and a half, 2 years, really, since you came in there. But we all know what's up here this week. Now that the middle week games are done, and I had to clue somebody in on this because people were talking about Carolina Duke week like back on Monday. I'm like, nah, bro, that hasn't started yet. Carolina Duke week starts after whichever of the 2 teams has played their middle week game. When that's over, then it starts, because we don't talk trash until after we get through whatever or something like Pitt happens. So like we don't do it. So now we're officially in Carolina Duke rivalry week, and it kicks off again Saturday, 6:30 p.m. tip off in Durham at Cameron Indoor Stadium. Now, as a UNC devoted fan, do you feel any different going into this game after what happened last year in the rivalry? Beating K in his final home game at Cameron, beating them in the Final Four, sending off K to retirement. Is it different to you this year?
I thought that it would be, Des. Like, I really thought that I wouldn't care if we won or lost to them, because we beat them in 2 high-quality games, like Coach K's last game in Hansborough Indoor Stadium, and, of course, the Final Four in New Orleans. But I do care. You know what I mean? Like, the rivalry isn't dead. You know what I mean? I really thought that we had, for some strange reason, I just felt like we had cemented the rivalry in New Orleans. But no, man, each year is different. And this is a new regime. You got John Shire over there. You got a bunch of freshmen over there that think they got it. Roach is over there talking his talk. And I'm interested to see what we do, because this Carolina team, even though we're looking better this year than we were last year going into our first game against Duke, I'm still not very happy with this team, and I'm not very confident in this team yet. I really feel myself in the same space I was last year, where I just didn't understand why we were taking certain losses. I didn't understand why we lost to Pitt last year at home. I didn't understand why we got blown out by 30 to Wake Forest, blow out by 30 to Miami. I wasn't understanding, blew out by 30 to Duke at home. I wasn't understanding those losses. And I'm sort of in that same vein this season. But I'm also optimistic, because I've seen what the team can do when they finally realize who they are. The question is, do we still have the same skill set from top to bottom that made that team able to gel like it was last year? That still has yet to be seen. But yeah, I'm excited about Saturday, and I hope we can kick some butt.
It's crazy because I thought I saw that Carolina's record's the same as it was at this point last year when they were going into the matchup with Duke. And you're right. Last year, there were some games where it was just like we got blown off the court. Like I saw the fan base like questioning everything like around this time of the year, where this year it's kind of like they don't really have a bad loss. Like out of all the ones they've had, the Alabama loss, the 4 overtime loss, that one looks better and better every day. They might be the best team in the country. And then Indiana at Indiana, Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, which is always hard, at Virginia. No Armando, I think, for both of those games. And we are not good when we don't have Bay Daht in the lineup at all. I don't know. I have this weird kind of like, I'm not worried about them. I didn't think they were the number 1 team in the country. I thought that they could be a Final Four contender by the end of the year because of experience, but I wasn't too sold on the preseason number 1. And then once they lost it, I don't know why they're not ranked. Well, now they lost to Pitt, they won't be ranked anyway, but I didn't know why they hadn't been ranked the past 2 weeks. They were on a pretty good tear. But
we hadn't beaten anybody though. We really hadn't beaten anybody.
Yeah, beat Duke on Saturday, and that'll probably change on its end. Now Duke is a whole other story because I'm more worried about Duke than I am Carolina. They feel like a first weekend team to me. Like
really,
every game I've watched Duke play this year. Granted, I haven't seen them the past like week or so, but the couple I did watch, it felt like I was watching a YMCA team, like a young.
Wow.
Just, you know what I mean? Like, not to be disrespectful, they're just so young. Like, it feels like it's a bunch of freshmen. Filipowski's the real deal, though. Like,
I've heard.
Yeah, he got some game. Like, if he don't get off in this game, they're gonna have a long night. But they don't have an alpha, and I think a lot of it's spoiled. Well, Armando to an extent, right? Caleb wants to be, but you know,
I mean, I'm not talking about an alpha as in I'm an alpha. I'll take all the shots. I'm talking about the alpha that the team fears. Like, who's the guy that can go in the locker room and say, listen, if we don't tighten up, I'm going to punch everybody in the face?
Oh, I got you. Yeah. I don't think that's really anybody on this squad.
Nobody. Nobody would believe that. If Armando went in there and said that, they'd be like, all right, Mondo. If Caleb went in there and said that, you might believe it, but he won't even say it. You know what I mean? Like, Pete Nance won't say it. Like, Leaky won't say it. Like, so we don't have that leader. We don't have that dog. We don't have the guy that can call a team meeting and say, yo, we won a national championship last year. The only thing different is Pete. Let's tighten up.
Because this is not, I try to compare them to 2016, 2017. This is not that. This is not the business trip. Like, we knew in 2017, we getting back. Like, no question, we get back. We had just lost the ACC Player of the Year and Bryce Johnson and Marcus Page, and we still knew. We were like, oh, this is about to go down. This don't feel that way. If they get there, I won't be surprised. But if they don't, I won't be surprised either. And it's because they just have these lapses here and there where they play down the competition. That's probably the best way to put it. They play up.
I disagree with you, Desmond, in the idea that, and I've had this debate a couple of times. It's always interesting what perspective folks have on this. That 2016-2017 season that we won the Natty, the average fan did not think we were going to the Natty.
Right.
Okay, because when you said it,
I mean the Carolina fan base, like the ones we knew who's coming back. We knew the rotation. We had
right.
Okay, we felt like we had a better shot than anybody going back into it.
But see, I always viewed this team this year like that 2009 team.
Ooh,
that team where everybody came back and it's yours to lose. Like at the beginning of the year, that's what it was. Like it was, dude, we're 1 rebound away from a national championship against Kansas. If we have everybody coming back except Brady, but we have another fifth-year senior in Pete Nance coming, and we have some remarkable freshmen this year coming. There's no reason why. And everybody's coming back. Caleb's coming back. Mondo's coming back. Leaky's coming back for his 6th season. RJ's coming back. Like, yeah, this is your natty to lose at this point. Just like that 2009 team when Ty and Danny and all those boys came back. We knew it was theirs to lose. Once the season started, I realized that we weren't as much better as everybody as I had thought. You know what I mean? Like it was like, whoa, this team isn't as dominant as I thought they would be. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I've had to have my own little shock or
I
check
could,
real quick. You know what I mean?
I could see the thought going into it that it could shape up that way. The 2009 team, I look at them as like one of the best Carolina teams of all time. Like once they got
Right.
I think they still hold the record for margin of victory in the tournament per game,
Right.
like 20 something points a game. And I don't remember who else was good in 2009. Like I think Michigan State and some others like that, but they were all a level below Carolina, like going into it. They tried to prop this Carolina team as that squad at the beginning of the year in the preseason.
Right.
And maybe if they didn't have the stretch where they were gone away from home for 3 weeks playing all these holiday games, people think that's the strange thing to me. Most of their losses, they've got 7 losses now, but 4 of them came like around Thanksgiving, like around that area. So it's been a while. It's not like they're really struggling. They're not really getting blown out by anybody. Indiana's probably the one game where it was just like it felt like we could punch and not inflict any damage, like throughout the game. But the rest of them, even Virginia Tech without Armando, those were all games that felt winnable. So I don't know. I'm in a weird spot with this Carolina team, but all it takes is beating Duke and Cameron to flip that switch in a heartbeat. The homie B Daht on with us here. Follow him on Twitter at B Daht TV. Real quick, this might change every year. It's probably why I ask you this every year during rivalry week. Who's your most hated Blue Devil of all time?
Yeah, it definitely changes every year. Josh Powell, though, like
who?
Yeah, exactly. He was I think that was his name. I don't even know if that was his freaking name. Oh, it might have been Josh Hairston.
Josh Hairston.
Gosh,
that name sounds familiar, but I don't remember him. Why'd you hate him?
It was a big dude. He wasn't a player. He wasn't like a star. He was just a dude that I didn't like because he didn't like me. And I'm for real. Like and this was the time around the NC Pro-Ams they used to have at Central. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
So I used to go to those all the time, man. Like I remember I was at the game where Leslie McDonald tore his ACL. Like I was at that Pro-Am game that pretty much ended the Pro-Am. Like after that, it was no more college cats. But this dude, I think his name was Josh Hairston, man. Something like that, man. He was just a jerk, man. Like it was him. And I didn't like Quinn Cook when he played at Duke. Like I literally hated Quinn Cook like when he played at Duke. And now we're cordial. He was in the G League for a while, so our paths would cross and we would get a chance to talk and stuff. But he was one of those dudes that I'm talking about. It was always smoke when I see him. And ugly ass Emil Jefferson. Like, yeah, we used to beef all the time too. Them three used to hang, man. Quinn Cook. I want to say his name is Josh Harrison.
I found him, Josh Harrison. He played 2013-14.
There he is.
Yeah,
him.
Forward.
Couldn't stand that dude, dog. Could not stand him. Oh,
he was a freshman on the title team in 2010.
And he acted like he was a senior that started.
Yeah.
That's why he got on my nerves.
I think he works for Clutch Sports. So
he works for Clutch Sports now?
It looks like it on his Instagram. He just likes them because it's in his description. So, but yeah, I didn't expect those. I expected like Grayson Allen or through the hits, Bobby Hurley, Christian Laettner.
Mine is personal. Like I've been around this. I've been blessed enough to be in certain sectors where I've actually got a chance to meet. Like people don't like Greg Paulus. I personally love Greg Paulus. You know what I'm saying? I got a chance to meet Greg Paulus. Like he is the coolest dude, man. He just happens to be on that poster with Danny Green forever.
Yeah, that's so unfortunate too. Like, you got to explain that to his children. Like you probably already have. Like, Daddy, have you seen this picture? Is that you? Now I gotta get you out here. You got a lot of projects going on. Talk to me a little bit about your new thing, Hot 107 FM. Hot 107.1 FM.
Very excited, man. It's for the audience that's 35 and up, man. A year ago, I left a 17-year stint at 102 Jams. And during that time, I've realized that there's no place where you can go where you can hear music that was hits when we were in high school. Like there's nowhere you can go hear DMX, Ja Rule, Ashanti, that Murder Inc., that Rough Riders, that Bad Boy, that Nelly, that Country Grammar. You can't go places and hear these things. And I've created a station where you can, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You will hear music from 1995 to 2010. And it is called Hot 107.1, the original hits. You can find it on Apple Music. You can find it on the MyTuner radio app and the TuneIn app. You'll see the logo. As soon as you see the Hot 107.1 FM logo, it looks so 90s. It looks Saved by the Bellas. You'll recognize it as soon as you see it. And I want everybody to listen all over the world.
I love the idea. That's a sweet spot too. 95 to 2010. To me, that's the golden age right there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely check that out. I've already been on it on different platforms. I was on it on TuneIn like 2 days ago. Yeah, so you can definitely get to it. Run it to your car through the Bluetooth. Use aux, whatever you got to do. Definitely check my man out. B Daht, follow him on Twitter at B.TV. He's always got something going on. Appreciate you coming through, brother.
Happy Black History Month. Make sure you check out I Didn't Know. Maybe You Didn't Either.
Yeah, definitely. Coming up, more from franchise players, Dennis Cox and Chris Lee from WRL come in for the Sports Buffet. Next.
Franchise players are often referred to as the face of the franchise.
Yo, listen.
Go in and break them off, show smooth. Let me something. Nah, welcome back to welcome into Franchise Players. Your host Desmond Johnson here with you. Got the fine folks from the Culture State Podcast and WRAL out in Raleigh with me. My guys Chris Lee and Dennis Cox in the house.
You forgot something.
Buffet.
You forgot something. We're also newly signed WWE NXT superstar.
I saw that. I saw the thing with you guys when you had was it HBK when you had him on the pod?
Yeah,
they threw it in the promo. I'm like, yo, those are my peoples. I know them. What's going on? So Chris Lee, Dennis Cox in the house. We're gonna have some fun with the Sports Buffet here. It is buffet time. For those that aren't aware of what that is, it's basically a hodgepodge of topics. Whenever I have a guest on that I feel like they can talk a bunch of numerous things, we kind of put them all into this cornucopia of mayhem, which is called the Sports Buffet. So, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get you guys started before Chris starts freestyling in here. Definitely check them out. Go to Twitter right now. Follow them, Culture State Pod, the Culture State Podcast. Y'all have had some top-notch guests the past couple of months too that you've been on with this pod. And I know you guys were on Saturday mornings on WRAL. That ended with football season. You told me they'll be back. You said March 4th, right? So that's March 4th. The second Carolina Duke game. So that's the end of the regular season. So they'll be back for March Madness. So definitely check them out when they start. But it's buffet time. So let's go ahead and head down 77 first. Go to Charlotte as new Panthers head coach Frank Wright was introduced. Thoughts on the hire? Initial thoughts on the hire. And did David Tepper throw a little shade at Matt Rule during that? Did anybody else catch that? They threw a little shade at him, and then all of a sudden there's a lawsuit.
A little shade.
Really shady.
He threw a whole tent over that thing. Let's be real. He's like, yeah, I screwed that up last time, getting a CEO type coach. That's on me. But you know that guy. Yeah, my bad. Essentially, yeah, he threw shade on it. Like, yeah, that guy stinks. That's basically what he said.
I didn't expect that to happen because we haven't heard from Tepper, but what was that, like the fifth time we've heard from Tepper since he's owned the team, like in a press conference setting. So we never know what we're going to get from him, but usually he's pretty wide open. What are your thoughts on this Frank Wright hire and the process?
Well, I was going to say with David Tepper, he always has a way of like admitting his mistakes, but throwing it back to somebody else. Like he always likes to throw things back on the media, right? And that's what he did for Matt Rule right there. But as far as Frank Reich, I'm with a lot of Carolina Panthers fans where I wanted Steve Wilkes to be the head coach. But I don't want that to take away from who Frank Reich is and what I think he can do with this team. It is unique that the Carolina Panthers have never had an offensive-minded head coach. Now that they have that, and maybe Frank Reich can take the Panthers to a new level. We've never seen the Panthers have sustained back-to-back-to-back winning seasons like that in their history. They'll usually have a good year, a down year, a good year, a few down years, another good year, things like that. Maybe with an offensive-driven league, you'll have more sustained success. Had a chance to interview him one-on-one when he was introduced, and seems like a cool guy. Seems like he's going to be there, but we'll see what happens when he actually steps on the field with the Panthers in September.
Dennis, I've missed your fake Matt Rule shorts, and I saw you had one. I think earlier in the week. For one. It was like getting a drink of water in the desert. So, and I feel like we get to a point, especially in the Bleav in Panthers podcast, where I'm like, I really don't want to talk about Matt Rule anymore because he's not here. Yeah. But he keeps finding a way to keep mentioning the Panthers. Like it's nonstop. I don't understand it. Like he just keeps going back to the well. Before we get to that, Your thoughts on Frank Wright, and was it the right hire, or do you think it's going to be the right hire?
I'm like Chris. I wanted Steve Wilkes to get the job because I just think that the team had bought in, because under Rule there was zero identity to that team. And then in a matter of just 12 games, Steve Wilkes established one with coaches leaving, coaches he fired, his best player getting traded away. The fact that he was able to do that, I think, shows the respect that he earned in the locker room from that team. But if you look at what Frank Reich has done in 5 seasons, I know he got fired his last season with the Indianapolis Colts, which is honestly probably a better situation for him to get away from Jim Irsay when you think about it for Frank Reich.
Big facts.
But he had 3 winning seasons, and another season where they won 7-9. That's with Jacoby Brissett as a starting quarterback, because Andrew Luck all of a sudden is like, I'm out, peace out. So he was never in a situation where there was stability at quarterback, yet he was still mostly successful. I know they had the 9-8 season with Carson Wentz where they missed the playoffs because they lost that last game of the year, or they lost the last couple of games of the season. But again, Carson Wentz was your quarterback, and you still were right there. I think he's shown that he can be an effective head coach, and the big thing is going to come down now for him and Scott Fitterer is, all right, who's the signal caller? Who's the guy under center? Because at the end of the day, I know that's just pulling a Matt Rule to transition into that, because at the end of the day, you got to have one, which is something that Carolina Panthers haven't had since Cam Newton got hurt with that shoulder injury 5 years ago.
Let me ask you guys this. With the Panthers having the 9th pick in the draft, as we stand here at the beginning of February, would you trade up in this draft for one of these quarterbacks? You? Which quarterback are you looking to trade up for?
Well, first off, let me say this. What I would do is I would go after what's my man, CJ Stroud. I would go after him.
Okay.
To me, he really impressed in the CFP, and I feel like he really showed what people were worried about. Like, he has mobility. He didn't get a chance to really show that a lot when he was at Ohio State. He has mobility, and he's accurate. He can throw it down the field and everything like that. That's what I would do. But these coaches have the luxury of talking to the kid, seeing him up close, seeing extra film that I'm not going to look at and don't have time to look at, and really being able to understand if he's going to be it. So if they feel they have a conviction that this guy is it, or a guy other than CJ Stroud is it, trade up and go for him. What do you have to lose? If you don't feel like you have the conviction, stay at number 9. But if to me, as a Panthers fan, from what I saw, the little bit that I know about football, I saw what I saw on television, and Ohio State should have never been in that game. But the person that kept him in it was C.J. Stroud, and it feels like he could be that on the next level in the NFL.
Dennis, your thought? Would you trade up for a quarterback in this draft, or would you sit tight at 9? Would you trade down? Would you not draft a quarterback? Like, it's a weird spot to be in for the needs they have in the draft that's actually in front of us. What would you do if you were Scott Fitterer?
If you are, like, for example, Stroud's your guy, if you can find a way to go get him, go get him. But here's the thing. Other teams, that's going to be his guy. Stroud's going to be their guy too. So you're competing against that. So at what cost are you, how much of the future are you going to mortgage for that one guy? I will always warn teams about this, because this is where the Panthers got into problems with Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, is that, oh, look, these other franchises, they have a franchise quarterback. They have a guy. They have that nice, shiny thing. Ooh, I want that too. I want that. Let me go get the thing for the sake of saying, oh, look, I have the thing. Just like a bad relationship. That's what that is. Like, oh, I have a girlfriend too. Look at me. I'm also married. I also have kids, and you're miserable. So I always warn against that, just for the sake of saying, like, I have the thing. Look, I did the thing. When really it's not a good situation. If it's not there for you to go get, even though you may love C.J. Stroud, guess what? He might go number 2. Yeah. The Texans might sit there and love him. Texans like, we ain't moving down. Yeah. I mean, if you want C.J. Stroud, you got to jump up to Chicago and go get him, and that's a steep ask to go from 9 to 1. Yeah. So I think if Texans are going to take him, don't move. If anything, if you get a chance, move down. Build your roster as a whole. Then go find a QB, because there might be a good free agent quarterback. Derek Carr might be floating around out there, or Jimmy G might bridge you for the next 2 or 3 years.
I don't know. Pay Derek Carr though.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
That's the thing with the rookie though. With the rookie, you're gonna have like 5 years of maybe paying him like between 15 and maybe 22 million a year, depending on what it is and where they land. And then Derek Carr, he's looking at everybody else's stats. He's going like, I want at least 35.
I think he's getting 35 or 38 already, because he just signed an extension like 2 years ago. So he's got a couple years left on the deal that's about to, I guess they're about to cut him unless somebody trades for him, but that would be dumb.
And you still have to pay Brian Burns. You still have to pay,
Exactly.
Jeremy Chin at some point. You're going to have to pay J.C. Horn at some point. So, it's, Scott Fitterer, I'm not envy his job. He has to figure all that out. But that's the part, like, to me, you have to find the young guy because you're going to have that. Look at what's coming up in the Super Bowl, right? Patrick Mahomes just got paid, and then you have Jalen Hurts who hasn't been paid yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the Super Bowl, we're in the sports buffet. Chris Lee, Dennis Cox with us here from WRAL Radio out in Raleigh. Super Bowl 57, Chiefs versus Eagles. Which would you rather defend, the Eagles' run game or a healthy Pat Mahomes in the Chiefs' passing game?
I'll take the run game. I'd rather defend that run game because at least, I can load up maybe 8 in the box potentially, but even still, they can still get out to the edge.
That feels like that's not working.
Oh, gosh. I don't know. But if Mahomes is just dealing it downfield, which would you rather do? Try and catch a running back out of the backfield or try and cover Travis Kelce, 15, 20 yards downfield running this like man coverage?
I'd rather.
Yeah, exactly. It's just,
I'd rather see someone else try to do it. But
the safest option is to be the DB that gets scored on, and he always looks back like, he's just gesturing like, no, I thought you're supposed to get him, that because you don't get hit. If you're going to have to get like, Boston Scott or Gainwell or, one of those guys out the backfield and they're going to hit you and that's going to hurt. So it's going to be injury. So I don't know. I guess I'd rather defend the Chiefs because I probably get hit less.
You're just going to run sprints all day. That's all you're doing.
I'm running sprints. That's
20, 40 yards back and forth over and over again. I can respect that. The quote unquote, I have to go quote unquote because I don't know if I can give it to him yet or not. Tom Brady, the quote unquote GOAT, and I'll explain my reasons for that in just a second.
Shade. He's talking about David Tepper throwing shade. This man is throwing all kinds of shade right now.
He retired this week, apparently for good, according to him. It's done. Like he's I can't imagine him coming back. So I don't know where he would land at this point. Name a time that Tom Brady hurt you. Name a time that he hurt your team.
Oh boy,
sticks out in your mind from the past 20 years.
Listen,
easy.
What was the Super Bowl? Was it 36?
38? Panthers?
38?
Yeah.
Yeah, that hurt.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to just a few weeks ago when J.C. Horn was hurt and we had to bring in Josh Norman from a coffee shop, and all of a sudden Mike Evans and Tom Brady decide to find themselves for the only game of the season that they found themselves. They found themselves, and it took the Carolina Panthers out of contention. So good riddance, Tom Brady. You've hurt me enough.
They didn't even know they were on the same team until that Carolina game.
He hurt me as a teenager, and he also hurt me as a guy in his late 30s. What the hell, man? Get out of here. Get out of here.
What name of time Tom Brady hurt you?
Well, let's see. I'm a born and raised Steelers fan. And he played for the Patriots. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. You heard us for years. 2001, never should have been in the AFC Championship games. That damn Tuck rule. We should have played the Raiders. Should have been in the Super Bowl in 2001. So, yeah, and then all those other years they kept going to the Super Bowl. Hey, granted, the Steelers did go 3 times and win twice, but damn it.
I felt that like right here. And the reason why I said quote unquote GOAT, I was just talking to Joe Deleone from Bleav, and we were talking about this, and I was like, I almost feel like Tom Brady is more like Kareem or LeBron than Jordan. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna have every passing record. Well, he has every record there is because he's played 20 years. Like he played so long, so did Kareem, so did LeBron. But when you looked at Tom Brady, it wasn't like you were looking at, okay, this is different. I haven't seen this before. Like this is a different thing. You don't get that with Tom Brady. You do with Pat Mahomes, which is why you're starting to get some Jordan comparisons with him. But you never hear anybody compare Jordan to Brady unless they're talking about rings or whatever, not like athletic ability or anything like that. And that's why I say, quote unquote, GOAT, because that's going to be a conversation that we might seriously have to have. Is he the GOAT? Is he the greatest football player of all time because of the stats and everything else that he's compiled? I don't know.
You're basically saying he's Chris Paul with rings. If Chris Paul would have been allowed to be traded to the Lakers back in the day when that was squashed.
A little bit,
like it would have been Chris Paul and Kobe winning all kinds of rings, and people would have talked about Chris Paul was the engine that pushed all that after Shaq was out.
Sort of, but see, and even with that, he still won stuff. He's got Olympic gold medals. He's well, that's really all he's won. I don't know. Like to me, it's just the
Well,
longevity.
Chris has never had the perfect setup. Tom Brady's had the perfect setup with two different teams.
True, and I compare him to LeBron a little bit too because they're both playing out of their minds in their late 30s. Well, for Brady in his 40s, like LeBron's 38. He'll pass Kareem here soon, probably in the next week or so, I would imagine, for all-time scoring. But I still don't have LeBron number one on my GOAT list, even though he'll have that record. And that's why I'm like, should I put Brady there? It's the same exact situation. Why am I putting Brady there and not LeBron? So just trying to figure it out.
Football, like who else is going to go get 7?
See, that's the problem. Like, I don't think anyone's ever going to get to 7. Like, it's just it boggles my mind that he was able to do that.
I think, like, unfortunately, you do have to put him as the GOAT, just because of that. Who else is going to quarterback 7 Super Bowls?
Mahomes, maybe. And even see, it's so weird to even say it because he's just now getting to his 3rd one, but it's the 3rd in 5 years. Yeah. So he's on pace if he can stay healthy, and we'll see. Sports Buffet. Chris Lee, Dennis Cox in here with me from WRAL. You're listening to Franchise Players here across the Triad on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. It's rivalry week, gentlemen. UNC versus Duke. Both coming into this game unranked. Carolina just lost to Pitt for like the billionth time on Wednesday, it feels like. Duke has had some issues on the road, but this is at Cameron. Is this still the biggest rivalry in college basketball and one of the biggest in all of sports?
Yes.
Would you say? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Just want to check. Just checking here because
yes.
I'm hearing some stuff from other places that are a little upset that ESPN's got this on Saturday night at 6:30, and I'm like, why wouldn't they?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. I'm sorry. Last time I checked, Duke Carolina, for a lot of people that are still locked in on football season, the first Duke Carolina matchup is their start of college basketball season. Yeah. Oh, you know why? Because it's Duke and Carolina. That's all you need to know. It doesn't matter if they're both unranked. It's still Duke versus Carolina. It's the two biggest national brands in college basketball, and it's a rivalry everyone knows. Everyone knows it.
They were both unranked in 21 and 20, I think, when they saw each other. The COVID years.
Yeah, the COVID year, we're not going to count that. Everyone forgets the COVID year.
That was like watching them play a scrimmage in a YMCA. Like, those were like the worst games to watch with no crowd. Like, it's the whole thing out. But last year brought it back. And
a lot of people forget, oh, by the way, granted, there's a lot of turnover with the players, but those two teams were just in the Final Four.
Yeah.
So, it's Duke, Carolina, two teams that are in the Final Four last year. Rankings just simply don't matter when it comes to college basketball.
College basketball has kind of lost its luster in general over the last few years.
Yes.
But as Dennis was just alluding to, it's Duke and Carolina that keeps people still interested. Mm-hmm. Like, if you didn't have these programs that geographically are that close to each other and are neck and neck as far as accomplishments and the greatness that it churns out as far as NBA, like Duke and Carolina fans fight and bicker really about the small things, if you really think about it. Yeah. Like, it's really like small minor differences between the programs. If you look at the top 5 schools that have turned out NBA talent over the last 30 plus years, Duke and Carolina are both in that top 5. There's no other ACC school that's there. I believe it's Duke, Carolina. This is not the order. Duke, Carolina, UCLA, Arizona, and Kentucky, right? And so those are the schools that have it. And you have these two schools, like I said, that are next to each other, have a lot of very similar accomplishments and have these Hall of Fame high-level coaches that have been there at their programs with all these big-time named stars that are still impacting the world of basketball beyond college. Like, there's nothing that you've ever seen. I even argue that it's bigger than Michigan, Ohio State football, because when's the next time you're going to see Jerry Seinfeld, kind of bundled up in a stadium watching Ohio State, Michigan? No, but he's coming to Duke and Carolina. Yeah. You're going to bring out the superstars for that. So I think still it's the best rivalry in college in general.
There's a reason why Obama shows up to Duke.
I was going to say, you have
Obama.
Presidents showing up here to Cameron Indoor. I thought 2019 was the peak of the rivalry, where they both got 1 seeds. That was the Zion year. Both teams had multiple first-round picks come out. Then we had COVID, so there was kind of a dip. Roy retires, everything else. Now Kay's retired. But last year with the final 2 games, and I know Chris probably don't want to hear about it, but the the last home game at Cameron for Coach K, and then the Final Four itself, there were people out there worried that the rivalry was going to die because of that. But to be honest, when I'm on social media, I actually run a couple of rivalry groups for Duke Carolina, and it's just as strong as it was before. The Duke fans were in hiding for about half a year, but once the season started, they were right back out. And as soon as Carolina went on that 4-game losing streak or whatever, it was back to business. Like literally, like Duke fans just came out of everywhere. Like, oh, preseason number 1, huh? Blah blah blah. I'm like, yo, man, like what? Like really? Like, can we just enjoy this for a second? But of course not.
Nope.
We're in the sports buffet. I can't let you guys out of here without asking you some WWE stuff real quick. Because we had a killer Royal Rumble Saturday night. I knew when they started off with the men's Royal Rumble to start the card, I was like, something's going to happen at the end in the main event, and it's going to be something with Bloodline. I'm like, okay, this is when it's going to happen. They're going to start it right here, because I put a dream card out for WrestleMania, and one of my matches was the Usos versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens for the tag team titles, and I almost had it main eventing night 1, and I'm like, all right, how do I get them there? Because they need to pace it to the point to get it to April, right, or March, or whenever WrestleMania is. I'm like, they got to do it at the Rumble. So if Rock's not there, or isn't going to be there, they got to move forward with what they've been planting for the past year. So for those that don't know, the biggest story was Sami Zayn finally turning on Roman Reigns in the Bloodline. After the main event, Roman Reigns retained the WWE Universal, I can't even name the whole thing. What is it? The WWE Universal Heavyweight World Championship.
Both of them. Just both of them.
Yeah, undisputed, all the things.
Over Kevin Owens. Cody Rhodes made his return, won the Royal Rumble. We kind of saw that coming as it paced out as well. He's supposedly get a shot at the title at WrestleMania. Are we going to actually see Cody versus Roman at WrestleMania? Is that the main event, do you think? Or is there another main event out there that we're not seeing?
So I think I said this to you before on the rundown, maybe, or maybe it was a personal conversation. I can't remember, but I know I was talking to you with it. But I was always wondering if they're going to use this opportunity to maybe split up the titles. You could have Cody versus Roman Reigns main event night 1, and then have Roman Reigns pull double duty, Roman Reigns versus The Rock, if that ends up happening, Roman Reigns versus somebody else in night 2. And you could have him drop one of the belts, probably the WWE title, because that's the one with the tradition. That's the one that eluded his dad and his brother. Drop that night 1. All of a sudden we go into night 2. Oh my God, he's lost for the first time in over 2 years. Is he going to lose his second one against his cousin, who's this international superstar, blah, 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 blah. And he retains that. So it ends up keeping him on top, but it also builds that drama and puts a little chink in that armor and gives them somewhere to go later on. Or, maybe if The Rock is not available, maybe the chink in the armor is the Usos, and they don't seem to be eye to eye right now. So maybe it is Usos versus Sami and Kevin Owens to headline night 1. And then all of a sudden, like, Roman's, upset, he's PO'd. And so you go into night 2, like, yo, you better not mess this up for me. That type of thing.
Yeah, that had some gas to it for sure. I had that as well. I had Cody versus Roman night 1. Cody wins with like interference from Sami or something like that. So he becomes the WWE champion. The next night, it's Roman versus Rock. He beats The Rock, so it keeps the record intact, keeps all that stuff intact, him heading towards Bruno Sammartino and all that stuff. You still get to keep all that, but you get the belt off of him, which he's had for a year at that point. So I was with that too. Dennis, your thoughts? Is that Cody versus Roman? Is that going to be the main event at WrestleMania, you think? Or are they going to make it a triple threat or change it up? Or what do you think?
I know. I think you got to stick with it. Keep it a singles match. A triple threat sometimes can cheapen things up a little bit because it's like, oh well, Roman didn't actually get pinned but loses the belts. It's an easy way out. The way Cody has been talking in terms of his promos and the media that he's been doing, he's like, Roman Reigns is the top guy, and that's who I'm going after. So I mean, I think it would just be a waste if it wasn't Cody versus Roman. At least night 1, I would actually like to see the way Sami has built himself up individually. As I think if he goes into a tag thing, I think it cools him down a little bit because the way WWE values the tag belts, I don't know. They don't value the tag titles. They don't. They instantly mid-card those things. I not saying that the two of them can't work together. I would like to see, you shake your head. You didn't let me finish yet, Chris. You're shaking your head like you let me finish.
And then I'm about to douse it.
Okay. No, here's what I would like to see. Sure, I'd like to see maybe if they do win the tag titles together, Sami and Kevin, like you mentioned, from the Usos. But like Chris said, there's that tension between the Uso brothers right now, which could lead to them dropping the titles. I would like to see if Roman Reigns does keep one of those titles at WrestleMania, that Sami eventually wins it maybe at, or at least set up for Sami versus Roman one-on-one at SummerSlam. That's a good way to keep it going.
What this really is Dennis being more an AEW guy, me being more of a WWE guy. And so this is informing part of his opinion. So this is causing the friction between us right now. And
I want to see Sammy have one-on-one against Roman in a premium event.
Well, I think that's what I want to see.
We can get there.
I think Elimination Chamber, that's going to be the main event. It's going to be Sammy versus Roman for what I've been reading. I don't know if they made it official. They'll probably maybe make it official Friday night. But
here's why Dennis was just wrong, though. Because first off, now with Roman as part of doing the bloodline thing, and the Usos have elevated the tag team titles. Yeah. And so now if you show that chink in the armor and these two guys that people love together and individually get the tag team belts, some of the best moments in WWE tag team history has been when, guys that are the tag teams who are strong individually, who are not a traditional tag team, come together and win the tag team titles. You remember when Daniel Bryan and Kane had the tag team titles? That was exciting. And you could have a nice run with that to set up another tag team later, which will also go into another Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens feud, which is all we're setting up for at the end of the day anyway.
That's one.
So that they can go against each other at WrestleMania for either, one of the titles, Intercontinental title, US title, whatever it is. Now, do we want to put down AEW now?
Nah,
we ain't
even got a chance to get over there yet. But no, Chris Lee, Diz Cox from the Culture State podcast, WRAL, they're all over the place. They'll be back Saturday mornings on 99.9 The Fan out in the Triangle area starting March 4th, but you can definitely go and upload the podcast as they drop with new episodes. Guys, I'll definitely have you guys back on as we get closer to WrestleMania. We'll have a segment of just that, because by the time I bring you guys back around, who knows what will have happened in the past 2 months. I'm sure we'll have some surprises along the way. Thank you, whoever that sent Triple H here to book this stuff, because if we were going through this season without Triple H booking stuff, I don't know if I would be able to to process all of this. But
thanks Vince McMahon and himself not being able to keep his thing in his pants.
Yeah.
That's what you got to
think. We'll be back in just a bit. You're listening and watching Franchise Players here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
Franchise players are often referred to as the face of the franchise.
Just Blaze.
Welcome back into Franchise Players here on WWBG 1470 AM and WTOB 980 AM 96.7 FM. So across the Triad, you can catch Franchise Players every Friday afternoon during your drive, and then the replay on Saturday mornings now, 10 a.m. on WWBG 1470 AM. Joining me right now, live from Mobile, Alabama, Joe Deleone. Did I say it right? Deleone?
Deleone.
I want to say that E for some reason there.
Well, you're supposed to pronounce it with the E. I don't know why my family decided to go rogue and remove that, but you were close.
from the Bleav Sports Network, you can follow him on Twitter at Joe Deleone. Joe, you're at the Senior Bowl. Of course, the biggest news here in the Triad is all the moving and shaking going on with the Carolina Panthers franchise and the front office. New head coach Frank Wright was introduced to the media earlier this week, I should say. Some interesting comments from general manager Scott Fitterer and owner David Tepper in terms of where the franchise is heading. I want to take an opportunity while I've got you at the Senior Bowl to focus in on depth with the Panthers, because the Panthers, while they do have some holes in some key positions, there's some other spots where they could use some serious, depth in. And of course, the Senior Bowl to me is a spot where you can kind of find some diamonds in the rough, some guys that might not be day one guys, but guys that might be day two or day three guys that can become contributors. Look no further than San Francisco 49er, Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy, who up until last weekend, last guy picked in the draft and was leading the 49ers to the verge of the Super Bowl. So I'm looking for depth for my Panthers. We've got some spots that can be filled in later rounds. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. Give me some skill position players that have stood out to you this week as a whole, starting off in the backfield, running backs. Who's the guy that's flashed the most to you?
Yeah, the running back group, admittedly, here at the Senior Bowl, it's not the sexiest. There's not really a premier player, because a lot of the guys that are at the top of this class are underclassmen. But two guys in particular have caught my attention. One, and a guy who went down with an injury, only practiced the first day, is Roschon Johnson from Texas. We're all familiar with Bijan Robinson because he's a freakish athlete. He was the best running back in the country, eventual first-round pick. Roschon is more of like a Brian Robinson type. Decent athlete, consistent, tough kid. What I saw from him and what attracted to me to him the most is what he did during the pass protection one-on-one drills with the linebackers. He was standing up these linebackers like it was nothing. And that to me is, you're talking about depth here. That's what you want in your second or third running back. You want a guy who's going to go out there, do the nitty gritty, is going to block, is going to, catch the ball out of the backfield. I think Roschon Johnson can do all that. And then somebody else who is picking up some steam after his fantastic game against USC at the end of the season. Tyjae Spears from Tulane is really shifty, elusive, quick running back. He's a smaller scat back style running back. It's hard for running backs at the Senior Bowl to really showcase their talent because it's thud practice. There's no one's taking him to the ground. There's no breaking tackles. But you see from Tyjae Spears an ability to read the field in front of him, to find those open rushing lanes, and he's done a ton of that so far this week.
Let's go over to wide receiver / tight end, because with the Panthers, they have a clear number one in DJ Moore, who's averaged over 1,100 yards a season throughout his entire career, which is nuts considering the quarterbacks that he's had thrown to him the past 3 or 4 years. And Terrence Marshall Jr., he'll be a third-year wideout out of LSU. Of course, came off of that monster 2019 LSU national championship team with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and all those guys. He kind of emerged as a second option with this offense last year, or towards the end of the year, I should say. Of course, we don't know going into it with a new regime how he'll be used, but I imagine that they would attempt to use that talent there. They could use a third guy, maybe like a possession type receiver, a slot guy. Who sticks out to you this week at the Senior Bowl amongst the wide receivers? Anyone that's flashed for you?
Yeah, particularly for these receivers. One, Michael Wilson from Stanford has been just so tactile and quick with his footwork and his route running. He is a wily kid who just keeps finding separation and then using his big frame to make a lot of plays and make a lot of these catches. But there's a number of speedy, quick guys that are creating silly separation with some of these defensive backs. And the two guys in particular that are raising a lot of eyebrows that fit that description are Jaden Reed from Michigan State, who is burning a lot of guys, and then Tank Dell is cooking dudes with his feet. They both have been running really great routes. They're constantly open, not just in the one-on-ones, but also in the team drills. But I think that those three guys, for the most part, despite it being an underwhelming, not an exciting receiver group this year at the Senior Bowl, those three guys have been the ones who have earned themselves the most money.
And if you want to ask Joe a question or pose something to him while we're watching this, you can always put it down on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio, or the Facebook watch of this episode. And of course, you can follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Deleone. Got with us from Bleav Sports Network, Joe Deleone, at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama this week. He's seen a lot of talent over the past couple of days. I went over and checked out your Twitter feed and just kind of saw some video that you've been posting throughout the week regarding the guys out there. Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball. So with the Carolina Panthers, they've had a pretty good young defense the past 2 or 3 years. Actually, 2-3 years ago, the first year of Matt Rule, they basically did do all defense for their picks. It was the first time in the modern era all 7 picks were picked on defense. And so it's a rookie contract type of defense. There's some stars pretty much at every level. On the line, they really need an edge to pair with Brian Burns, either that or a defensive tackle to pair with Derek Brown, someone to kind of get the double teams off of both of them and to kind of allow them to kind of wreak havoc along the line. Who is there in Mobile, the Senior Bowl, that you've seen that we should remember during draft weekend that would be a nice pickup, either at edge, like an edge rusher, or a defensive tackle that can be like a run stopper?
Yeah, the edge rushers here have not been as exciting as the defensive tackle group. The defensive tackle group has been dominating the one-on-ones on a day-to-day basis, especially the national team squad. The Northwestern kid whose name is escaping me right now, I know his first name is Ade, I'm forgetting his last name, has had a really nice 2 days. The biggest winner, I think, out of any prospect at the Senior Bowl right now is Keanu Benton from Wisconsin. He is having a massive stock rise because of how hard he has been to block so far this week. He at Wisconsin was misplaced in his usage. He was playing nose tackle. He was also dealing with an injury for part of the season. And now he's being put in a position to succeed where he's going to play in the NFL, which is participating, mostly as a 3-tech. And being placed in that spot in these one-on-one drills and these team drills, he's allowed to showcase that speed, that quickness, that hand aggressiveness, the power that he has for the position. I would not be surprised if Keanu Benton does not end up as a late first-round pick when it's all said and done.
Okay. So that's something definitely keep an eye on, as the Panthers have. I think they have 3 second-round picks. So they would be a prime candidate to maybe move back up into the bottom of the first. And Scott Fitterer, the general manager, he's known for moving up and down the board. He doesn't like to stay where he is. So we'll keep an eye on that for sure. They could possibly trade out of that 9th pick and decide to just completely build this defense up, So if the quarterback's not there. Let's move to the back 7 of the defense. Linebackers, secondary players to keep an eye on this year in the draft in your mind. Who's flashed for you? I think maybe our secondary is not that it's not bad, but it was exposed at the end of the year last year in that Tampa game where we just ran out of bodies. And Tampa literally won the division because they were throwing against 3rd and 4th string cornerbacks for Carolina due to injury. So Dante Jackson will be back next year. J.C. Horn looks like he might be a top 5 cornerback in the league potentially if he can stay on the field. And then after that, there's a bit of a drop-off with the cornerbacks for the Panthers. C.J. Henderson's flashed a little bit. He was a former top 10 pick. You got Keith Taylor out of Notre Dame. You got a couple other guys, but they're not the same. They're definitely not the same as J.C. Horn, and I'd put Dante right underneath that and then the rest of them. So cornerbacks out there that might be a steal day 2. 2nd round, 3rd round, anybody that's out there that you've seen that's just kind of shown they've kind of got the goods?
Yeah, Kyu Blue Kelly from Stanford had a really nice second day. He looked good on the first day, and then second day around yesterday, he had so many plays on the ball, just great instincts, stepping in, knocking the ball out of the air, and then he also had a pick 6 during the team period. One guy who's not a corner, but a defensive back that can play a number of different roles that I think has solidified themselves as an early 2nd round pick is Christopher Smith from Georgia. He was overshadowed by all of the talent that was around him. So I wasn't that bullish on his draft stock. Seeing that he doesn't have those guys to rely on, seeing how he performs in one-on-one drills, I have been extremely impressed with just his capability to lock guys down. He's locking down tight ends. He's locking down receivers. That coverage skill for a safety is really frightening to know that you can get a guy that good. I thought he was more just of a level-headed, consistent DB. And part of me wonders if this guy can be a very high-level pro at the next level. And he's done more than enough to prove that to me.
Okay. So Panther fans that listen to franchise players each week, you got a whole notebook sheet of guys to keep an eye on as we get closer and closer to the 2023 NFL draft. Real quick, Joe, before I get you out of here, of course, the quote unquote GOAT Tom Brady retired apparently for good this week. Apparently. I think everyone's kind of believing this is it this time around, though. He's 45. He'd be 46 in August. It looked like it was going to be Tampa or retirement at this point. Your thoughts on the career of Tom Brady, and where do you have him ranked? Is he the greatest of all time?
Yeah, as much as it pains me to say that I think he's the greatest of all time, me being a Giants fan, you can't ignore the statistics. And I know that there's the arguments, like Mike Francesa was trying to make the argument of he's not the greatest regular season quarterback, he's not the greatest postseason quarterback, he was just there the longest. The longevity is what makes him the greatest, is that he was at a high level for that long. So many quarterbacks have fallen off of a cliff. Heck, Aaron Rodgers, some might argue, might be on that trajectory of falling off of a cliff in the next couple of years. And already looked like that this past year. So you got to respect what has made him the best player of all time. It's not what he does physically. It's all mental, and it's the longevity. I think you'd be silly to not make that argument that he's not the greatest from everything we've seen him do in his career.
I kind of, and I'm glad you saw that Mike Francesa thing on First Take, back in the Mad Dog reuniting there. I kind of felt him, though, because it was like, it's kind of the same argument I've had about LeBron and Michael Jordan, where it's like, like LeBron's going to have all the records when he's done because he's played for 20 years. It's almost like Tom Brady's like Kareem, and like Pat Mahomes is like Jordan, where it's like when you look at him, you look at Mahomes and you're like, okay, I haven't seen that before. Like that, I've never seen that before. And that would happen with Jordan. And like, he was always around the championship game, and Mahomes is tracking towards that. Brady, it feels more along the lines of Well, he just outkicked his coverage. He played like 10 years longer than he probably thought he was going to. And that just being on those teams just added up all these numbers. And Kareem just has all these numbers, and LeBron has these numbers. But I can't say that Kareem and LeBron were better than Jordan because I watched them, So I can't say Tom Brady physically is better than Pat Mahomes, but I totally understand the whole logic of saying, well, Tom Brady has 7 Super Bowl rings. Literally, he's got five Super Bowl MVPs, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if anybody's ever going to break that. I don't know if anyone's ever going to get 7.
There's nothing sexy about anything that he's done, but it's just the results. You can't argue with the results. It's one of the few times that I will concede that the stat sheet is enough to make the argument.
Yeah, it's a pretty convincing resume for
Absolutely.
sure. Joe, tell them where they can find you online. Joe Deleone from the Bleav Sports Network.
Follow me on Twitter at Joe Deleone for more great NFL draft, college football coverage. And then make sure you head on over to the Bleav Network YouTube channel and also Bleav.com, where you can find a lot of great content, a lot of great shows, a lot of great draft coverage that's going to be going on. So make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any of that.
Absolutely. And I think I might have been one of the first ones that came on with Bleav back 3 years ago when it started. And I'm just so happy just to see the growth of the network from where it began to where it is now, where every NFL team, there's a podcast for every team. There's a former player attached to each one. You guys have expanded into television channels and all kinds of different things, radio, tune in, all kinds of stuff. Just happy to be along for the ride. I really appreciate the opportunity. And Joe, I'll definitely have you back on soon as we get closer to the NFL draft.
Of course. Thanks again for having me, Desmond, and always down to talk ball, talk about these NFL draft prospects. So I'll be looking forward to connecting with you soon.
Coming up, we'll take a commercial break. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Franchise Players here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com, WTOB 980 AM and WWBG 1470 AM.